You are lounging on your couch, phone in hand, feeling responsible. You just moved 40% of your life savings into a fund managed by two Nobel Prize winners. Not gamblers, not hustlers, actual economic geniuses who built the math that Wall Street still runs on. That fund lost over $4.5 billion in 4 months. The firm was called Long-Term Capital Management. Its founders included Myron Scholes and Robert Merton, the same men whose equations priced options for the entire financial world. They didn't lack intelligence. They had more of it than almost anyone on the planet. That's the part that should terrify you. Because right now, as you sit there scrolling, convinced you're the rational one in every argument, every trade, every smart purchase, your brain is running the exact same corrupted software that took down two of the sharpest minds in modern finance. You assume intelligence is a shield, a firewall against stupid decisions. It's not. It's a better excuse generator. The smarter you are, the more convincing the story you tell yourself about why this time is different. So what actually happened inside those genius brains? What glitch let two Nobel laureates walk straight into a financial cliff while feeling completely in control the entire way down? Strip away the equations, and it's the same trap hiding in your grocery cart, your relationship, your last regrettable online purchase. A trap so old it was built into you before language even existed. You were never actually choosing freely. You were pattern matching against a threat that stopped existing 10,000 years ago. Here's where it starts. Picture your ancestor on the savannah, a rustle in the grass. No time to calculate probabilities, no time to weigh evidence. The brain that survives is the one that commits instantly and confidently to a decision, right or wrong, and moves. Confidence wasn't a bonus feature. It was the entire survival mechanism. Fast forward past every technological leap humanity has made, and that same circuitry is still running the show. Except now it's not deciding whether to run from a lion. It's deciding whether to buy the stock everyone online is screaming about at 2 a.m. The mechanism doesn't know the difference. To your ancient brain, a hot tip and a rustling bush trigger the exact same certainty response. And certainty feels identical whether you're right or catastrophically wrong. That's the part nobody warns you about. The two men running long-term capital management weren't reckless. They were certain. Their models had worked for years. Every data point reinforced the belief that they had cracked the market's code. Then Russia defaulted on its debt in 1998, and every correlation their models depended on broke at once. Their genius didn't prevent the collapse. Their genius built a more sophisticated cage to be trapped inside. Wait, it gets worse, because the flaw that sank two Nobel laureates isn't rare. It isn't reserved for hedge fund managers with private jets. It's sitting in your skull right now, quietly rewriting your last 5 financial decisions into a story where you were always in control. You tell yourself you're different, more careful, more self-aware than the average person scrolling past ads at midnight. That belief is itself the trap. In the 1970s, two psychologists named Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky ran a study that should have humiliated an entire species. They asked people to rate their own driving ability compared to others. Over 80% rated themselves above average, mathematically impossible, psychologically inevitable. This wasn't about driving. It was about a design flaw baked into how your brain evaluates itself, a flaw with a name overconfidence bias, and it doesn't fade with intelligence. It gets worse. The more expertise you accumulate, the more elaborate your internal evidence for your own genius becomes. A novice trader loses money and thinks, I got unlucky. An expert trader loses money and thinks, the market is irrational, I was right, timing was wrong, same loss, more sophisticated denial. Right now, as you replay a decision you made last week, a purchase, a text you shouldn't have sent, a sure bet that wasn't, some part of your brain is already rewriting the story so you come out looking reasonable. That's not memory, that's protection. Kahneman spent decades mapping this terrain with Tversky, eventually building what became known as prospect theory, a brutal discovery that your brain doesn't evaluate decisions by logic. It evaluates them by how they feel relative to a reference point. Losing $100 doesn't feel like the opposite of gaining $100. It feels roughly twice as bad. Picture two stickmen standing in a kindergarten sandbox economy. One stickman finds a shiny rock and loses it a minute later. The other stickman never had the rock at all. Same object, same value. But the stickman who lost it will scream, negotiate, and irrationally overpay to get it back, while the other shrugs and moves on. You are that screaming stickman more often than you'd like to admit. This is loss aversion, and it doesn't ask your IQ for permission before hijacking a decision. It's why you hold a falling stock far longer than logic allows, waiting to break even, before you can permit yourself to walk away. It's why Scholes and Merton's fund didn't cut losses early. The psychological cost of admitting the loss was real, felt heavier than the actual financial bleeding. Here's the uncomfortable question. If two of the most quantitatively brilliant minds in history couldn't out-calculate this feeling, what makes you think your gut is any more trustworthy than theirs? Milgram's obedience experiments in the 1960s revealed something adjacent. Ordinary people delivering what they believed were dangerous electric shocks simply because an authority figure in a lab coat told them the experiment required it. Intelligence didn't predict who refused, something else did. The pattern across every one of these studies is identical. Your brain doesn't run on cold logic. It runs on inherited emotional shortcuts wearing a lab coat made of rationalization, and the smarter you are, the better tailored that lab coat fits. Wait, it gets worse. Because overconfidence and loss aversion aren't separate glitches, they're about to merge into something far more dangerous. A mechanism that convinces brilliant people to double down on a sinking position right as the walls close in. You've felt this before? You're $40 deep into a game at the arcade, no closer to winning the stuffed animal, and instead of walking away, you feed in another 20. Not because the odds improved, because walking away would mean admitting the first 40 was wasted. Economists call this the sunk cost fallacy, and it might be the single most expensive glitch your brain runs. Picture a stickman standing in a hole he dug himself. Someone hands him a bigger shovel. Does he climb out? No. He digs faster, muttering that the hole was an investment, and quitting now would waste all the digging he's already done. That stickman is every trader who held on to long-term capital management's collapsing positions in 1998, convinced the models were still right and the market simply hadn't caught up yet. The math said stop. The ego said one more round. Here's the twist that should genuinely unsettle you. Sunk cost thinking gets stronger, not weaker, in people with more analytical training. Richard Thaler, the economist who helped drag this bias out of academic obscurity and into public awareness, found that trained professionals were often better at constructing airtight justifications for irrational persistence than amateurs were. They didn't lack the framework to spot the flaw. They had the framework to argue it. Right now, think about the last subscription you kept paying for, the relationship you stayed in past its expiration date, the degree you finished despite hating every semester of it. You weren't finishing because it made sense going forward. You were finishing because stopping meant admitting the past was a loss. Your brain would rather bankrupt your future than audit its past. And this is exactly where the modern economy sinks its hook in. Loyalty programs. You've already invested 3 years in this app. Premium subscriptions that punish cancellation with guilt, tripping pop-ups. Every one of them is engineered around sunk cost, not value. Casinos don't need better odds. They need you to feel like you're due. Subscription services don't need a better product. They need you to feel like canceling erases the money already spent. Your intelligence doesn't protect you from this. It just gives you better vocabulary to defend the trap once you're inside it. Kahneman once observed that the illusion of validity, the confident feeling that your judgment is accurate, is one of the most stubborn cognitive errors, resistant even when a person is shown direct statistical proof that their confidence is unjustified. You can be handed the evidence, you can understand the evidence, and your gut will still overrule it. Wait, it gets worse. Because overconfidence, loss aversion, and sunk cost don't operate one at a time. They stack. And when they stack inside a system specifically engineered to exploit them, a market, an app, an entire economy built on your predictable irrationality, the result isn't a bad decision. It's a designed collapse. And you're not just susceptible to it. You're currently inside one. By 2008, the mechanisms that sank long-term capital management hadn't been fixed. They'd been scaled up and handed to an entire global banking system. Same overconfidence, same loss aversion, same sunk cost thinking, wearing tailored suits instead of hedge fund badges. Banks held mortgage-backed securities they knew were rotting, and instead of admitting the loss, they bought more. The same stickman in the hole, digging faster, calling it strategy. The 2008 financial crisis erased over $10 trillion in household wealth worldwide. Not because the people running the system were stupid, because they were exactly as intelligent and exactly as trapped as the geniuses who came before them. Here's the part that should genuinely disturb you. Every safeguard built after each collapse, every regulation, every risk model, every "we've learned our lesson" promise gets designed by the same brains running the same ancient software. You can't regulate your way out of a bug in human cognition. You can only build systems that account for it. And the modern economy has learned this lesson far better than you have. Every limited time offer is engineered around loss aversion. Every loyalty tier is engineered around sunk cost. Every stock app that gamifies trading with confetti animations and streak counters is engineered around overconfidence, making you feel like a genius on your way to becoming exactly the kind of overconfident casualty this chapter started with. Right now, think back to that phone in your hand, that fund. That 40% of your savings moved with total, comfortable certainty. You didn't make that decision with a calculator. You made it with the same circuitry that once decided in half a second whether a rustle in the grass was worth running from. The two Nobel laureates who built long-term capital management weren't outliers. They were a preview. You are not smarter than the trap. You are just the next person standing in it, feeling certain right before the walls close in.